Station. This is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston Station, I'm ready for the event.
European Space Agency, this is Mission Control, Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Space station right now is somewhere over the Pacific. It's somewhere halfway towards Latin America, which will be the next landmass it will hit. And I just heard some sound. I think we are connected to Houston.
And Josef, like European Space Agency Director General in Davos, I can hear you loud and clear. This is Matthias Maurer, astronaut on the space station. How do you read me?
Very good. Hello, Matthias. Very nice to hear you. Very nice to see you. As always, you are in good shape. You have a green T-shirt, which is the color of our discussion today at the panel, so really appreciate. So how are you doing, and where are you, and what have you been doing just now?
Yes, so I'm doing fine, I'm doing well, and this morning I was actually involved in a lot of cargo operations. We fill our vehicle that we sent back. Actually, I think cargo is the wrong term. I should say it's our harvest vehicle, because it's full of scientific experiments, results. We worked hard in the last weeks and months, and now we bring this harvest back to our planet Earth for the scientists to analyze all these samples that we have produced up here in space and to produce science and knowledge for humanity out of it. And right after my cargo activities, I also did some sports, and that's why you see me probably like clean and in good shape now, because I just had my kind of a wet towel shower.
Fantastic, Matthias. As you know, we are here connected through the World Economic Forum's virtual space session, and I would like to hand over to Rebecca Blumenstein, a New York Times Deputy Managing Editor, and she will moderate this session with you. So, Rebecca, over to you.
Thank you, Joseph, and hello, Matthias. It's so good to see you.
Hello, Rebecca. It's wonderful having the opportunity to talk to you from space and hopefully to have a very nice exchange also about a very important topic.
I must say we were debating of whether we should say good day, good evening, good night, and because you orbit the Earth every 90 minutes, it's a bit of a real-time call. But I'd love to start off by asking, how have your views of the planet changed since you have been aboard the International Space Station?
Yes, so you're right. We circle our planet like every 90 minutes, 16 times a day, and we work according to the UK time, so Greenwich Mean Time, so we're only 1 hour offset of you. And yes, I traveled the planet once before, like it was a round the world trip, and that was always my big dream. And this like seeing the world changed my life, and it gave me a lot of different attitudes, like how we should work with our planet and the people on our planet. But now being in space, and especially this morning when I did my sports activity, and while doing sports, I can look out of the window and I see down there our planet gliding by. I saw Latin America, South America gliding by, and a few minutes later, less than 10 minutes, we were over Africa, and it crossed my mind that Christopher Columbus took this journey just in the opposite direction like 500 years ago, and for him it was a really tough adventure, and he had his 3 ships and his crew, and everyone needed to work hard to make this one challenge possible. And nowadays I look at from space down there, and for me, like space is like our planet Earth, it's one big spaceship. And I think like the tripulation, the crew of our spaceship Earth is like the crew of a ship of Christopher Columbus at that time. We all need to work together in order to meet the challenges of our day, like climate change, for example. So I've been here in space and I've fallen in love with our planet even more than before.
And how does the work that you do help the environment? And what would you say to some people who say we're focusing a bit too much on space and not enough on the Earth?
Yes, I think like space cannot be the only solution to have a solution for climate change, but space is definitely a very, very important aspect. And I see three different layers to it. For example, like we have the personal layer, like every individual needs to contribute, and space is a big motivator. When I talk to the kids, I can motivate them and I can describe what I see. And we also have the technological layer. For example, we need to improve our technology to create less CO2, to have more efficient machinery, more efficient transport. And here on the space station, we do a lot of research to produce these new and innovative materials. And there's also the political level. And I think you are today there in the political level discussing such problems. I think you, the political decision makers, they need to have the data, and the data comes from satellites, and it also comes from the science that we do in space. For example, we look at the Earth with the satellite data that we provide to you, but we also prepare exploration. And exploring space means also looking at different planets, like planet Mars, for example, who used to have an atmosphere and a lot of water, but now the water is gone. So obviously there was an extreme climate change over there. And so space can bring in a lot of knowledge and feed all this information into the decision maker so that you can take the right decisions.
Vice President Gore is on our panel, and he played an instrumental role in creating the International Space Station. Could you please talk about just what cutting-edge research you're doing? You mentioned your cargo work before, but just what is your goal for this week or month up there?
So I'm working here during 6 months in space, and I would say like between 100 and 150 experiments I will be participating in. And it's a large spectrum. For example, it involves a lot of life sciences. You all know that humans in space and zero gravity, that it has a lot of changes. The muscles and the bones like they dissolve and get weaker, and that is much, much faster than on planet Earth. So actually like the loss of bone mass happens up to 30 times faster than on the ground. And so astronauts are kind of guinea pigs, and we can study in a very controlled environment, in a very fast way, very fast progress, like how to fight such diseases. That can be done by nutrition, by medication, but also by doing sports. And I have a very interesting experiment which is called myotones. And in this experiment, I can measure the strength of several muscles on my body, and then we feed this information back to the scientist, who then prescribe us countermeasures. For example, I have a suit that provides me small electroshocks, and it also comes from rehabilitation. And this all will feed back and help elder people who who have problems with their body, like muscle problems, bone problems, to remain longer time fit and healthy, or once they are in hospital, maybe to get out quicker from the hospital. But I also have very interesting experiments that are correlated to like the pandemic, for example, like Corona pandemic. We all know transmission of diseases is a very important topic, and I have here new metals, new alloys that I brought to space that are modified on the surface and that they kill bacteria. And especially here in space, with the space radiation, the mutation rate of bacteria or like microbes is faster. And so the scientists will learn a lot how these new surfaces behave here in space in this controlled environment. They can analyze it, and hopefully we can transfer this knowledge also then into everyday life. For example, in hospitals where surfaces that everyone touches, and then is like a surface that is prone to transmit these microbes from one infected person to the next healthy person and infect him, that we can stop this chain and cut this chain. So it's very important. Then we have Simon, which is artificial intelligence. Once we fly further away from the Earth, I will not have my Houston ground control team, or in Munich in the European ground control team, who looks over my shoulders and steps in if I do a small error or if I have a question. So artificial intelligence is really important for exploration in space, but also on the ground it's very important, also to increase efficiency in all like ways of transport, or also space transport management. Then we have experiments that are also related to reduction of CO2. We have concrete hardening, a very interesting experiment that looks into a seemingly very old material, concrete, which we have everywhere around us, but not in space usually. And but during the production of concrete, we produce a lot of CO2. And so if we can improve this process by a better understanding of the process, we can actually cut down also the CO2 emissions, and that will be very significant.
You sound very busy. I would love to hear your views about space tourism. Do you think it's a good idea for more people to have the experience you're having now? And I would also love to know, what do you do for sport up there, for sports?
Yeah, for sports, we're not playing football here for sports, but we have three different devices. One is like running, it's like a treadmill, so I'm running, but actually I'm chained down to this machine that pulls me with a certain force on there, and so the force that I have here is like almost like the gravity force on Mars, so I'm always having my Mars jog here on the space station. And then we also have a bicycle without a saddle, because we don't sit, we just float there. And we do a lot of the work just with the legs, like pulling and pushing. That's for like cardio activity. But then we also need to do sports that tells a lie to our body, namely like telling like you need your bones and you need your muscles. So we need to do weightlifting. And obviously in zero gravity you don't lift any weight, but we push against a pressure that has the same effect like weightlifting on the ground. And that is very, very important. And since we have this new machine, like the health status of astronauts in space has become much, much better. So, and the other question, remind me please again.
Space tourism, do you think it's a good idea for more people to have the experience of looking at the Earth the way that you get to every day?
Yes, obviously, like space tourism is like it's a two-sided like knife. It has one positive side, like the more people fly to space, the more ambassadors we have that hopefully come back to our beautiful planet Earth and say like, we need to take care of our planet, we need to reduce the emissions, we also need to stop everything that I see here from space and that makes my heart bleed, like burning rainforest, or like the melting of the glaciers, like all these phenomena we can see here from space, also the flooding last week in Brazil that we could observe here from space, that are clearly evident. And I think everyone who's been only a few days in space will become a really avid ambassador for our planet Earth and to protect it in the future. On the other hand, the more people we fly up here, the more rocket launches we will also have. And so we create also waste and space debris. And here that's a very important topic, because on our planet Earth we ignored for way too long that the open seas, the oceans that don't belong to any country, are still important. So we shouldn't like put our oil there or our garbage there, because in the end it will end up in the food chain, and we had to learn this. And the same happens now here in space. We fly to space, or we have been flying to space for 5-6 decades. And now we see that every time we launch a vehicle to space, we leave space debris, and that piles up. And in the end, either we actively clean space, or we will have the same problem that we have on the ground with too much garbage, and like people get annoyed by it. Here, it actually gets a safety issue. And so we need to take measures to make sure that space is clean and accessible also in the future for everyone. Because you will not want to live in a world where space is not longer accessible. Our economy and our daily lives depends way too much on everything that we have here in space.
With all the new satellites and the space debris you mentioned, is it becoming dangerous to orbit the Earth in the International Space Station? Joseph was saying earlier that there was an incident recently where you actually had to take shelter.
Yes, so we always had like space debris issues. It comes from the early rocket launches, but it's also, we have natural space debris, because there's also like stuff coming from the universe and entering the atmosphere, and that's passing also our orbits. And so spaceflight is risky, but if we take the right measures, I wouldn't say it's dangerous. For the International Space Station, we have a lot of ground control teams that measure the area and the space that we're flying in. And if there's any object coming close to us, we will take measures. So one measure could be that we do a debris avoidance maneuver, which usually means we start up our engines and we lift the space station a little bit. Sometimes we also need to slow down and lower the orbit a bit, just to dodge away from the object. If the object comes on a very short notice, then we need to go into shelter, which means we hide in our spacecrafts and close all the hatches between the different modules, just in case that something happens. But I think so far everything went well, and the flight controllers have a very good situational awareness. But the more rockets we launch and the more stuff we bring up to space, I think we need to have rules, strict rules, who needs to do an avoidance maneuver. For example, if we have a collision upcoming between two satellites that can be actively controlled, because everyone who dodges to the side burns energy and reduces the lifetime. So basically, it has also directly an economic impact to do so. And ESA is in a very good position, and we have people, experts in ESA working in the Space Situational Awareness Program. But I think that is a question that also Josef Aschbacher, the Director General of ESA, will probably have mentioned already or will raise awareness again, because it affects everyone, not only ESA or NASA. It's everyone who's active in space.
You've talked a lot about cooperation. Just to wrap up, how do you think, if you're talking to people, we have a very global panel, there's people tuning in from around the world, how can we ensure cooperation on common rules for everyone on Earth for the beneficial use of space?
Well, I think we can look at space. The International Space Station is really inspiring. I mean, we launched this project 21 years ago, and people have been living here ever since. People from a lot of different nations, different languages, different cultures, and it works. We all work together. We are one team, and I wish we could extend this cooperation, this success, on to many more projects, and also especially to the very important projects like fighting climate change. And so I think we can inspire people and say, look what we have achieved with the International Space Station, and let's go an additional step also in other topics.
And finally, climate change is obviously such an urgent issue here on Earth. Do you think that you mentioned the fires and sometimes the flooding that you see, you feel like you can actually just with your eye see the impact of climate change from space?
Yes, I mean, when we fly around the Earth 16 times a day, we cross over areas that are very arid, very dry, and I can see scars on our planet Earth where people dig deep into our planet just to extract resources. So we're actively reshaping our planet. We are cutting down trees, we're burning down rainforests. So I see the flames, and I see huge areas of agriculture where generations of astronauts before had seen a nice intact rainforest. So also the glaciers are getting smaller and smaller, but I mean, the satellite photos provide here much better imagery for this one, because you need to look into long term, and my 6 months here in space is probably a little bit too short. But also see areas of flooding. And so we astronauts here, we can be communicators and communicate this to the people, because data is one aspect, but having an ambassador who tells it is another aspect. And we are actually also contributing here in producing technology that hopefully is helpful against climate change. For example, we are preparing the exploration of the Moon and Mars. And in order for this exploration, we need new technology. We need to have closed-loop chains, for example, the water loop. We recycle all the water that we have here on the space station up to roughly 91, 92%, I believe. But in order to be successful in exploration, we need to come up to 98%. So, and all this technology that we use and develop for space, we then spin off to the ground and then help to produce clean water on the ground and have more efficient like closed loop systems. And I think that's a very important aspect. And also like looking at energy production, we use solar energy here on the space station, and solar energy has been like developed in the past quite a bit for space applications, and now it's the game-changing technology also on the ground to fight climate change.
Well, I want to thank you so much for your time. We learned so much talking to you, and best of luck up there. You're doing very impressive, important work.
Well, thank you very much for giving me the chance also to communicate about this very important work. And please keep on going, discussing the very important topic about climate change. And we all need to contribute. All the best for your very important work.
Thank you so much, Matthias.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event. Thank you.
Thank you to all participants from ESA.
Thank you, Houston.
Station, we're now resuming operational audio communications.